In a bold and some might say reckless move, Reebok, under the leadership of basketball legend Shaquille O'Neal, has made Angel Reese the centerpiece of its grand re-entry into the basketball shoe market. The strategy? Leverage her fiery personality, her viral college moments, and her media presence to reignite the brand's relevance in the sportswear industry. But here's the problem. Reese's professional track record hasn't caught up to her fame. While other sports brands often anchor their marketing to proven superstars, Reebok decided to gamble on charisma over credentials. They saw in Reese a media-savvy athlete who could dominate headlines, stir conversations, and attract a younger audience to the brand. And for a moment, it worked. Her signing made waves across sports outlets, social media platforms, and basketball forums. This wasn't just a sponsorship. It was a statement. Reebok was back, and they were betting big. But as the WNBA season unfolded, cracks in the plan began to show. Reese's on-court performance wasn't living up to the hype. Critics began asking uncomfortable questions. Is this a marketing move without the basketball substance to back it up? Can a brand's revival really hinge on someone who's yet to prove themselves at the professional level? Reebok's vision was clear: position Reese as the next big thing in women's basketball. Not just an athlete, but a cultural figure who could sell sneakers, apparel, and an attitude. But vision alone doesn't win games. And as each disappointing performance stacks up, the brand's gamble looks riskier by the day. The potential reward is enormous, a fresh face redefining Reebok's basketball identity, but the risk is equally staggering. If Reese doesn't deliver on the court, the very foundation of Reebok's comeback strategy could crumble, leaving the company scrambling to explain one of the boldest and possibly most misguided endorsements in recent sports history. For all the noise surrounding her off-court persona, Angel Reese's performance between the lines has been under intense scrutiny, and not in a flattering way. In the WNBA, reputations aren't built on social media followers or college highlight reels. They're forged in grueling matchups against the best players in the world. Reese's transition from college dominance to professional competition has been anything but smooth. Statistically, her numbers don't justify the magnitude of her endorsement. While she has shown flashes of her collegiate form, grabbing rebounds with tenacity and showing hustle plays, her offensive efficiency, defensive rotations, and ability to perform under pressure have been inconsistent at best. And in a league where rookies are expected to prove themselves quickly, patience from both fans and sponsors is wearing thin. The biggest concern isn't just her averages, it's the visible gap between the image Reebok is selling and the reality fans are seeing on the court. Game after game, when the hype meets the hardwood, that gap becomes harder to ignore. Her shooting percentages remain subpar, her turnovers occasionally costly, and her inability to dominate against veteran forwards has left analysts wondering if Reebok hitched its wagon to a star still in the making, rather than one already shining. Critics point to the added pressure of the endorsement itself as a possible reason for her struggles. The deal made her not just a player, but the face of a corporate comeback, and that kind of weight can rattle even seasoned athletes. Every missed layup, every defensive lapse isn't just a personal setback, it's a hit to the brand's credibility. Opposing fans have begun to use her endorsement as ammunition, taunting her with chants and social media memes questioning her worth. Reebok envisioned a marketing juggernaut, an athlete who could dominate both in style and substance. Instead, they're stuck defending their choice while hoping her development catches up to the storyline they've already sold to the public. The danger? If her performance plateaus, Reebok's campaign risks becoming a cautionary tale about the perils of betting on potential over proven results. What began as a triumphant announcement complete with press releases, slick photo shoots, and social media fanfare has now morphed into a narrative Reebok didn't plan for. Instead of headlines about bold designs and record-breaking sales, the conversation has shifted toward performance criticisms, public debates, and heated online arguments about whether Reese even deserved the contract in the first place. In today's fast-moving media cycle, perception can be as important as reality. For every loyal fan defending Reese's potential, there are dozens of viral posts, hot takes, and sports commentary segments pointing to her stats and questioning Reebok's judgment. On Twitter, threads comparing her contract to past endorsement flops have gained traction. On YouTube, reaction videos dissect her every game, turning small mistakes into major talking points. Sports talk shows are now lumping Reebok into discussions about the worst marketing bets in sports history. For Reebok, this isn't just noise, it's brand erosion. They entered the deal hoping to position themselves as the daring, culture-savvy underdog in the sneaker wars. Instead, they're in damage control mode, trying to steer the narrative back to the brand's revival story. Their marketing team has doubled down on promoting Reese's personality, her college legacy, and her off-court ventures. But the louder they push the positive angle, the more it risks feeling like overcompensation, and consumers can smell that from a mile away. Even more troubling is the long-term impact. A poorly received endorsement doesn't just hurt short-term sales, it lingers. Future athletes might hesitate to sign with a brand that becomes the subject of online ridicule. Retailers might be less eager to stock products tied to a controversial figure. And most damaging of all, public trust once shaken is hard to rebuild. If Reebok can't regain control of the narrative soon, the deal could cement itself in the public memory as a marketing disaster, overshadowing any potential on-court turnaround Reese might deliver later. The PR storm is here, and it's intensifying, and right now, Reebok seems to be caught in the middle without a clear umbrella. In the digital era, the court of public opinion is held online, and the Angel Reese Reebok deal has become a case study in how polarizing an athlete can be when the hype collides with real-time performance. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok have been flooded with clips, memes, and commentary, each side passionately defending its stance. On one side are the supporters, who hail Reese as a cultural icon, a young, confident woman unapologetically owning her space, inspiring the next generation of athletes and giving Reebok a fresh face in a stale sneaker market. On the other side are the critics, who see her as overhyped, underperforming, and emblematic of everything wrong with marketing over merit in modern sports endorsements. This divide is more than just fans arguing, it's algorithm-driven warfare. TikTok edits juxtapose her most viral college moments with missed shots in the pros. Twitter threads turn her on-court stats into punchlines, while Instagram fan pages celebrate every glimpse of her in Reebok gear. The result? An echo chamber effect that amplifies the extremes. Love her or hate her, there's very little in between. For Reebok, this polarization is both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, engagement is through the roof, and in marketing, attention often equals currency. On the other, sustained negative discourse risks eroding the aspirational image the brand is trying to project. Every time a critical post goes viral, it chips away at the narrative they're working so hard to craft. What makes this even more challenging is that social media doesn't forget. Unlike a bad game that fades from memory after a few days, viral criticism gets screenshotted, reshared, and resurrected every time Reese has another off night. And when those moments start to stack up, the conversation begins to shift from a rough patch to a pattern. If Reebok wants to turn the tide, they'll have to find a way to leverage this divide, leaning into the cultural conversation without letting the negative voices define the story. But in a climate where controversy travels faster than fact, that's far easier said than done. Endorsement deals are inherently risky, but this one had all the hallmarks of an all-or-nothing play. Reebok wasn't just signing Angel Reese, they were making her the centerpiece of their comeback strategy. The marketing rollout was aggressive. Nationwide ads, exclusive sneaker drops, and a positioning that put Reese shoulder to shoulder with some of the most marketable names in sports. Internally, this was sold as a masterstroke, a move that would signal Reebok's relevance in the modern basketball space. But here's where the gamble veered into dangerous territory. It hinged almost entirely on Reese's immediate professional success. In the past, legacy endorsements with rookies had the safety net of gradual growth brands allowed athletes time to prove themselves. Here, the clock started ticking the moment Reese put on a Reebok jersey. Every game, every play, every public appearance was a test, and unfortunately, early results have not matched the hype. Reebok also underestimated the volatility of the current sports media climate. In 2025, one bad game isn't just a bad game, it's an instant trending topic, a viral clip, a debate point for every sports show in the country. That means any stumble doesn't just live in the stat sheet, it lives on the internet forever. For a young athlete still finding her rhythm, this creates an impossible expectation. Perfection from day one. The problem is compounded by the way the deal was structured. Sources suggest Reebok committed to multi-year campaigns, front-loaded with heavy ad spend and high production costs. That means they can't simply pivot away without admitting defeat, something brands rarely do publicly. If the current trajectory continues, they'll be locked into promoting a face that the public narrative has already begun to question. In high-stakes sponsorships, the goal is to attach your brand to an unstoppable rise. But when you tie yourself to an unproven star, and the rise doesn't come quickly enough, the fall can be swift and very expensive. Right now, Reebok isn't just trying to win back public trust. They're trying to avoid becoming the punchline in every marketing class for the next decade. When Angel Reese entered the professional scene, the expectations weren't just high, they were stratospheric. Backed by a historic college career and viral moments that turned her into a household name, she was painted as the next unstoppable force in women's basketball. Reebok bought into that vision completely, structuring their campaign around the idea of her dominance translating seamlessly into the pros. But the transition hasn't been the smooth, storybook rise that the brand or her fans envisioned. Stat sheets have a brutal honesty that marketing can't spin. While Reese has had flashes of brilliance, her averages in scoring, shooting percentage, and defensive impact have not matched the level of a franchise-defining player. Every missed layup, turnover, or defensive lapse becomes ammunition for critics, especially when the athlete in question is front and center in multi-million-dollar ad campaigns. The contrast is stark. In commercials, Reese is framed as an unshakable champion. On the court, she's looked at times like a player still searching for consistency. The danger for Reebok lies in this widening performance gap. Sports endorsements thrive when the athlete's current achievements fuel the brand's message. When the athlete's struggles become the headline, the endorsement starts to feel out of sync with reality. In Reese's case, every subpar game becomes a viral talking point not because she's the only player who struggles, but because she's the one with the biggest contract and the loudest marketing push. It's worth noting that many great athletes hit turbulence early in their careers. The difference here is that Reese's turbulence is being broadcast and dissected in real time by millions of people, including those who never wanted her to succeed in the first place. This constant spotlight leaves little room for organic growth. Instead of quietly working through the normal adjustments of a rookie season, she's playing under a microscope, with critics framing each stumble as proof that she's overrated. For Reebok, the performance problem is not just about stats, it's about credibility. When the face of your comeback campaign doesn't dominate the way you've promised in your ads, consumers start to question not just the athlete, but the brand's judgment. And if that doubt takes root, it can be harder to overcome than a losing streak. Reebok's marketing around Angel Reese wasn't subtle. It wasn't cautious. It wasn't even paced. From the moment the ink dried on the contract, the brand went all in, portraying her as not just the future of women's basketball, but as a cultural icon in the making. Billboards, social media blitzes, primetime commercials, the message was clear. Angel Reese was already the one. The problem? Sports history is littered with cautionary tales of athletes who were declared the next big thing before they had the chance to prove it. Overhyping is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it creates massive buzz, ensuring everyone knows the name. On the other hand, it amplifies every weakness. When you tell the world someone is destined to dominate, the world doesn't just watch, it watches with a magnifying glass, waiting for cracks to appear. And when they do, those cracks become headline news. In Reese's case, the overhype effect has been devastating to public perception. Early struggles, the kind any rookie might face, have been reframed, not as natural growing pains, but as evidence that she's all talk. Critics and rival fans have seized on the discrepancy between the hype and the reality, turning her into a lightning rod for debates about overvaluation in sports endorsements. What's worse for Reebok is that this backlash isn't just targeting Reese, it's boomeranging back onto them. The brand is now seen by some as a company that either misjudged talent or deliberately inflated expectations for profit. Neither perception helps them rebuild their reputation in a fiercely competitive sneaker market. The psychology here is simple. When you oversell a product, whether it's a shoe or a superstar, the public feels misled if the reality doesn't match the promise. And in the age of social media, that disappointment doesn't fade quietly. It becomes content, memes, and endless commentary. Every time a clip surfaces of Reese missing a key play, it's paired with a screenshot of her latest Reebok ad, a side-by-side that tells its own story. By creating an atmosphere where anything less than instant greatness was seen as failure, Reebok and its marketing team didn't just raise the bar for Reese, they made it almost impossible for her to clear. And now, both the athlete and the brand are paying the price for a hype machine that was too loud, too soon. The fallout from Angel Reese's rocky start didn't just play out on the court, it exploded online. Social media, once a tool for building her brand and deepening her connection with fans, quickly became a battlefield. Every missed rebound, every off-night shooting performance, every frustrated look caught on camera became instant meme material. The same platforms that had amplified her image during Reebok's marketing blitz were now amplifying the backlash with relentless speed. Twitter threads dissected her stats game by game. Instagram Reels compared her highlight packages to those of other rookies who were delivering more consistent results. TikTok creators jumped on the trend, posting side-by-sides of Reese's fiery pre-draft interviews against her current struggles. Captioned with biting sarcasm, the digital crowd wasn't just criticizing, it was piling on. For Reebok, this was a PR nightmare. Social media's echo chamber effect meant that even casual basketball fans, people who might not watch a single WNBA game, were exposed to the narrative that Reese's deal was an overhyped flop. And because Reebok tied its marketing so tightly to her personal brand, every jab at Reese became an indirect hit at them. The brand's problem was compounded by the fact that they failed to get ahead of the narrative. There was no strategic pivot in their messaging, no proactive campaign to reframe Reese's season as a journey rather than a failure. Instead, silence from Reebok allowed the online conversation to spiral unchecked, leaving the public to draw their own, often harsh conclusions. What makes social media backlash so destructive is that it's self-sustaining. Once a negative perception takes hold, it feeds on itself. Old clips resurface, quotes are taken out of context, jokes evolve into widely accepted truths. In Reese's case, the initial disappointment over her performance quickly morphed into a running gag about Reebok's judgment. And in the world of brand perception, jokes are poison because they're easy to remember and hard to erase. In the end, this social media storm didn't just bruise Reese's image, it cemented the idea that Reebok had made one of the most short-sighted endorsement decisions in recent sports history. Inside the locker room, chemistry is everything. A team can survive losing streaks, bad press, and even injuries if the players trust one another. But when one player enters with outsized expectations, a massive endorsement deal, and the media spotlight following her every move, it can subtly or not so subtly shift the team's internal dynamics. That's exactly what insiders suggest may be happening with Angel Reese's rookie season. While most WNBA veterans are no strangers to endorsement deals, Reese's Reebok contract is different. It was positioned not just as a sports partnership, but as a cultural moment. The deal was announced with headlines framing her as the face of Reebok's revival, a symbolic leader in their return to the basketball spotlight. The problem? That same face of the brand's status can unintentionally create a hierarchy, one where teammates might feel overshadowed or underappreciated. It's not about jealousy in the traditional sense. Professional athletes understand business. But in a competitive locker room environment, perceptions matter. When the media repeatedly asks about Reese's deal rather than the team's collective performance, it can foster frustration. Every time a loss occurs, it's not the star veterans being grilled, it's the rookie with the sneaker deal. And while that scrutiny is directed at her, the ripple effects can impact everyone in that room. Reports have hinted at subtle tensions. Veterans who feel their years of contribution are being overlooked, role players who believe their grind isn't being equally rewarded, and even younger players who worry about what this precedent means for future rookies. In sports, even small cracks in team unity can widen quickly, especially if the losing continues. For Reese, this is an incredibly delicate balancing act. She has to live up to the deal's hype without alienating her teammates, carry herself with humility while still embracing her role as a marketable star, and somehow produce enough on the court to quiet critics, all while navigating her first professional season. For Reebok, the locker room dynamic is an invisible but critical factor. If Reese's deal is perceived as a distraction rather than a motivator, it not only hurts her brand, it makes the partnership radioactive for everyone involved. And if the tension spills over into public comments or visible on-court friction, the fallout could make this endorsement go from controversial to outright toxic. When Reebok signed Angel Reese, the plan was clear: position her as the fresh, unapologetic face of their basketball revival. They wanted her bold personality, her unapologetic confidence, and her viral presence to fuel a new wave of sneaker culture. On paper, it was a savvy move. In practice, the execution has been underwhelming. The biggest mistake? The rollout. The deal's announcement came with fanfare, but there was no long-term campaign strategy to keep the momentum alive. Sure, there was the headline splash when Shaquille O'Neal, Reebok's newly appointed president of basketball, touted her as the brand's future. But beyond that, silence. No consistent ad campaigns, no viral social media pushes, no street-level activation that connects her story to the average sneaker buyer. In an era where athletes' endorsement success hinges on constant engagement, short-form content, behind-the-scenes storytelling, collaborative designs with cultural influencers, Reebok seemed to think the contract itself was the marketing. That's a fatal assumption. Consumers need to see why Angel Reese's name on a shoe means something. Without that connection, even the most hyped deals lose their spark. The WNBA season should have been a goldmine for Reebok's creative team. Every game is a potential storyline. Every public appearance is an opportunity for branding. But too often, the coverage of Reese's season has focused on-court struggles or drama, rather than the lifestyle and inspiration Reebok could be packaging and selling. The brand needed to flood the zone limited edition drops, collabs with streetwear designers, surprise pop-ups in basketball hubs, exclusive fan meetups. Instead, it's been business as usual. And here's the reality. Sneaker culture is about heat. You either keep the hype warm with constant fresh drops, or it cools off fast. Right now, this deal feels lukewarm, and that's dangerous for a brand betting millions on a single personality. If Reebok doesn't pivot soon, they risk the public associating the Angel Reese deal not with excitement and innovation, but with missed chances and wasted potential. In today's sports landscape, social media doesn't just report the news, it shapes it. And for Angel Reese, the internet has become both her biggest amplifier and her toughest critic. Every on-court performance, every emotional reaction, every public statement is instantly clipped, captioned, and circulated across millions of screens. It's not just ESPN or sports blogs setting the narrative anymore. It's Twitter threads, TikTok edits, and Instagram reels, all with their own spin. When Reese thrives, the internet can make her a hero in minutes. But when she stumbles, the same system that elevates her also magnifies every flaw. A missed layup isn't just a statistic. It's a looping GIF under a mocking caption. A frustrated post-game interview isn't just a human moment, it's a meme that racks up millions of views in hours. And in the context of a high-profile Reebok contract, every negative clip becomes ammunition for those claiming the deal was a mistake. This cycle is relentless. One viral moment of criticism can overshadow weeks of quiet progress. Worse, negative narratives often snowball. Someone posts a highlight of a bad play. Another user stitches it with past mistakes, and suddenly, the perception becomes that she's always underperforming, whether that's fair or not. For Reebok, this is a dangerous storm to navigate. The brand's bet on Reese wasn't just about her basketball skills, it was about her persona, her charisma, and her ability to drive cultural conversations. But cultural conversations in 2025 move at lightning speed, and if the momentum turns against you, it's hard to get it back. Every negative viral moment chips away at the aspirational image Reebok is trying to build, forcing them into constant damage control instead of proactive marketing. The irony? Reese's bold personality, the same trait that made her such a compelling signing, is also what makes her so polarizing online. Her confidence fuels her fans, but it equally fuels her detractors. And in the unforgiving arena of social media, where perception often outweighs reality, that polarization has made this deal one of the most heavily scrutinized in recent sports history. Brand loyalty in sports isn't just about logos or shoe quality anymore, it's about identity. Fans don't just buy a sneaker, they buy into a story, a personality, a belief system. When Reebok signed Angel Reese, they weren't just adding a player to their roster of endorsements, they were staking their claim on an attitude brash, confident, unapologetic. For a segment of the market, that was magnetic. For another, it was provocative. The trouble began when Reese's on-court struggles started colliding with this carefully constructed brand image. Fans who had been cheering her rise began voicing disappointment, questioning whether the hype had outpaced the performance. And in the age of instant communication, disappointment turns into backlash at record speed. Comment sections filled with criticism, sneaker forums lit up with debates, and sports talk shows started openly questioning the wisdom of the deal. Reebok now faces a split customer base. On one side are the die-hard Angel Reese supporters, those who see her as a trailblazer under unfair scrutiny, a young athlete navigating intense pressure. They buy the sneakers, defend her in comment threads, and treat her success as a personal win. On the other side are the disillusioned fans who feel the brand has doubled down on hype over substance, turning their backs not just on Reese but on Reebok as a whole. This divide is dangerous for any company because it erodes the shared identity that makes brand loyalty so powerful. If fans no longer feel united by a common message, they start looking elsewhere. Worse still, the negativity doesn't just affect Reese's line, it casts a shadow over other Reebok products, creating a ripple effect of doubt. The company is now stuck in a balancing act. Protect their investment in Reese while also mending fences with alienated customers. It's a delicate PR game one where every move is scrutinized, and one misstep could deepen the fracture. In essence, Reebok's gamble on Reese has morphed from a bold marketing move into a high-stakes loyalty test. In the cutthroat world of sports endorsements, one brand's misstep is another brand's golden opportunity. While Reebok grapples with the backlash surrounding Angel Reese, Nike, Adidas, Puma, and even rising streetwear-driven sports brands are seizing the moment to solidify their grip on the market. Every headline about the Reese controversy becomes free advertising for her rivals, a subtle reminder to consumers that there are safer, more proven athletes wearing other logos. Nike, for instance, has leaned heavily on its stable of battle-tested WNBA veterans and international stars, showcasing players who are delivering consistent on-court performances and carrying minimal off-court drama. Adidas, on the other hand, has been aggressively pushing its next generation of women's basketball endorsers, players who, while perhaps not as polarizing, are steadily building credibility and trust among fans. This competitor advantage isn't just about optics, it's about sales channels. Retailers tend to prioritize brands that generate positive buzz and avoid controversy, meaning store shelves and online banners could increasingly spotlight Nike or Adidas lines while quietly downplaying Reebok's presence. And in an industry where visibility drives sales, that shift can be devastating. There's also the sponsorship chess game to consider. While Reebok is locked into defending its decision with Reese, competitors are free to redirect their marketing spend toward rising talents who offer both athletic dominance and public relatability. This allows them to control the narrative while Reebok fights fires. Perhaps most dangerously, the controversy has given rival brands a perfect marketing contrast. They can position themselves as the home of proven winners, subtly implying that Reebok chases headlines over substance. Whether fair or not, this perception can sway undecided consumers, especially in a competitive sneaker market, where every buying decision counts. In short, while Reebok is stuck in damage control mode, its rivals are sprinting ahead in the race for consumer trust and market share. Unless Reebok can pivot quickly, this advantage could turn into a long-term market shift away from the brand. When the Angel Reese deal was inked, Reebok was banking on a fast return on investment sneaker sales, apparel drops, and merch collaborations that would boost quarterly revenue and position the brand back into the basketball conversation. But now, with public sentiment fractured and sales momentum slowing, those optimistic projections are being revised, and not in a good way. Analysts tracking Reebok's performance have started sounding cautious notes. Retail sell-through rates for Reese's signature line aren't meeting initial expectations, and online pre-orders for upcoming releases have shown noticeable drop-offs compared to launch hype. This creates a twofold problem. Underwhelming sales hurt short-term cash flow, and lingering inventory ties up capital that could be invested elsewhere. It's not just about sneaker sales either. High-profile endorsement deals are expensive, and the cost isn't limited to the athlete's paycheck. There's marketing spend, production costs, distribution logistics, and promotional events. If the public relations climate isn't favorable, those costs don't just fail to produce the expected returns, they can actively drain resources, forcing the brand to cut back in other areas. Investors and executives are likely eyeing the situation with growing concern. In competitive markets, uncertainty can lead to hesitation, and hesitation from retailers, distributors, or shareholders can quickly spiral into real financial strain. For a company trying to re-establish dominance in the basketball market, a shaky balance sheet could scare off future partners and limit expansion opportunities. The looming risk is that Reebok may have to write down the deal as a sunk cost, or worse, renegotiate terms that publicly signal the partnership didn't deliver as promised. Either outcome could have ripple effects on stockholder confidence and brand perception. If Reebok can't find a way to reverse the trajectory, the Angel Reese gamble could end up as a case study in how a single endorsement deal can shift not just marketing narratives, but an entire company's financial outlook. The Angel Reese deal has left Reebok standing at a crossroads. On one path is a full-scale recovery strategy, a proactive campaign to reframe the narrative, salvage the partnership, and re-engage the very audience they were aiming to capture in the first place. On the other is the more brutal reality, cutting their losses, pivoting to safer bets, and quietly letting the Reese experiment fade into the background. If Reebok chooses the first path, they'll need to double down on storytelling, crafting a redemption arc, not just for the brand, but for Reese herself. That could mean more community-driven initiatives, visible charity work, and high-profile collaborations that re-establish her as an inspirational figure beyond the court. The messaging would have to be sharp, authentic, and relentless, because the internet rarely forgets a PR stumble. The second path, walking away, comes with its own risks. Ending a high-profile contract prematurely would spark fresh headlines and could alienate other athletes considering endorsement offers. Competitors would seize on the move as proof that Reebok's judgment and talent selection is flawed, further denting credibility. Some insiders suggest a hybrid approach. Maintain the partnership, but quietly shift the focus toward team-based or league-based marketing, reducing reliance on Reese as the sole face of the campaign. This would allow Reebok to preserve face while gradually diluting the association, buying time to reassess their branding strategy. Ultimately, the road ahead will test Reebok's adaptability. The sneaker game is unforgiving. One misstep can erase years of progress, but a bold, well-executed comeback can make history. Whether Reebok's leadership has the vision, speed, and resilience to pull it off will determine if the Angel Reese saga becomes a short-lived stumble or a defining chapter in the brand's rebirth.